The Regional is the first iteration of what will be a recurring exhibition focusing on artists that live and work in the Midwest. The show brings together new and recent work by 23 artists who examine themes common to the region. Some artists respond to stereotypes about the heartland, folk traditions, and culture. Other artists explore how the Midwest has been and continues to be at the center of national discourse around race, class, immigration, and labor. When you think of the Midwest, what stereotypes come to your mind? Isa Gagarin creates spaces and compositions that hover between abstraction and representation. For the Regional, Gagarin has created a new work that responds to her research into Indigenous Pacific Islander navigation. Rather than using a sextant or a compass, these communities commonly use their outstretched hand as a tool for determining direction by measuring the angle and distance between oneself and the sun. The work's composition, rendered in collage on the wall, features abstracted hand forms layered upon imperfect, organic, water-like semicircles. The shades of blue and gray, flecks of bright orange, yellow, and pink are a nod to a well-known aspect of the Midwestern landscape, the prairie. For Gagarin, the idea of wayfinding and navigation is a metaphor for the social and political reorientation needed in America today. Risaki, or receding wave, explores the relationship between body and place and the power that something as subtle as a shift in the way we see might trigger greater shifts in consciousness and action. This work, and the state of emergency is also always a state of emergence, captures the material, spatial, and sensorial relics of Hong Yo's 18-month stay at a refugee camp in Hong Kong as a child. The bunk bed structure is made from paper covered in graphite to resemble steel. Yo comments, quote, "There is a tension between something that is weak that is also being strong," end quote. Plaster cast preserved meat cans are stacked under the frame, referencing the rations given to refugees, which were often traded for fresh vegetables. The work sparks a powerful commentary on the lived experience of refugees from the perspective of a child and the fragmented ways that memories stay with us. Anissa Lewis works with her hometown community, reconciling her memories of the past with her changing neighborhood, and emphasizing the ways recollections of home either linger or become lost through time. Her 2015 Pleasant Street series consists of several prints that visually merge Lewis's past and present experiences of her hometown, Covington, Kentucky. Each of the works shows one of her childhood photos enlarged and placed onto current houses in the area. The images evoke feelings of nostalgia for a past that now only exists in photographic memory. The figures are transformed into ghosts, haunting the place they once called home. Have you ever visited the place where you grew up? Has it changed? How did you feel? In Brown Paper Flag Test, Lyndon Barrois Jr. questions the ways identity and skin tone have been used in the construction of race. The infamous brown paper bag test was a form of discriminatory practice within African American communities. This test favored fairer-skinned African American people because of their perceived closeness to European ideas of beauty and history of preferred treatment. These constructs of beauty and the ability to pass were based on a complexion the color of a brown paper bag or lighter. In his work, Berrois Jr. questions how we have been taught to think about ideas of beauty and acceptance. Jonathan Christensen Caballero works with life-sized figurative sculptures to reflect on both Latinx identity and labor in the United States. Trained as a ceramicist, he uses earthenware, industrial materials, and reclaimed fabrics to highlight the plight of immigrant communities, Mesoamerican mythologies, and his own personal memories. Envios a mi hermano, or shipments to my brother, speaks to the practice of sending money to family members in another country, commonly called remittance. Made in reaction to increased political tensions around immigration and border policies in the United States, the artist raises questions about the lineages that connect families across generations, as well as the struggles of families separated by the border. Cut up used cloths have been blended with paper and mixed with glue, referring to the artist's experience growing up wearing hand-me-downs, and raise larger discussions around identity, labor, and class. Margot Volovietz's practice calls attention to urgent environmental topics with a specific focus of the industry and infrastructure of Detroit, where she currently resides. This work features images of waterways in cities vulnerable to flooding, including Bangkok, Detroit, Miami, and New Orleans. The imagery appears tranquil, yet their source material alludes to a much more sinister reality about our most precious natural resource, water. The artist remarks, quote, "The banks of the Detroit River are home to steel mills that have destroyed the land they sit on and pollute our air and waterways, yet are an integral part of the U.S. economy." End quote. Land, specifically what is grown on land, inspired Lorena Molina's installation Reconciliation Garden. In this work, she asks viewers to think about their consumption, specifically of coffee. In the height of the coffee production in El Salvador, 95% of the country's income came from coffee crops, yet the land was owned by only 1% of the population. This led to the Salvadoran Civil War from 1979 to 1992. The United States supported this war with $4 billion in aid, training of elite military units, and supplying sophisticated weaponry. The war was mostly fought in forests and farms surrounded by coffee plants, banana plants, palm trees, and mangoes. To emphasize the idea of reclaiming these forests, Molina's work includes plants that provided the landscape for the devastating 12-Year War. Their calming visual elements and lush green colors act as a meditation on healing. In this work, Molina asks, how can we make amends for the past actions of our country?